Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's guest is the cartoonist behind graphic novels like Flip from First Second and the upcoming Orion over at DC Comics. It's Ngozi Ukazu. Thanks for coming on, Ngozi.
Thank you so much for having me. It's nice to talk to you again.
It is lovely to talk to you, too, especially before your book tour instead of after it, where I imagine you will be a sleepy person. Have you done a book tour before?
Yes, I've done, oh my gosh, I think this is my technically fourth book tour. Each book tour varies in length and number of stops, but this is by far, and I'm calling it like a festival tour. You know how musicians go to different music festivals. This is more of a festival tour because it's just every weekend, new festival, club, party, club, another club. I messed up the Lady Gaga quote. But yes, it's a lot of festivals. So
it's starting.
I will sleep on planes.
It's starting with a small press expo. It will be over by the time this podcast goes up, but then it'll close with the Texas Book Festival. I know it's spread out to some degree, but do you feel like you need to mentally, emotionally, physically prepare for this? Or is it just brute force?
It's focusing on one thing at a time, one festival at a time, because with some festivals, I'm visual. With some festivals, there's also school visits that I'll be doing too.
Oh, wow.
So it's just about okay, I'm doing this festival, I'm doing this talk, and then I might go to this school and then reset, breathe. And there's some stuff that's not even on the schedule that I posted online. Like I'll be going to Rice University to give a talk, and I'll be going to a performing arts high school in Houston to also give a talk. So there's some other little visits there, but gotta do it. That's show business, baby.
You specifically say on your website that you like giving talks, though, don't you?
I do. And I'm like, do I like giving? It's like, I like pizza, but could I eat a whole pizza in one sitting? It's kind of like I'm realizing okay, yeah, I like giving talks, but I'm going to like giving myself time to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
soon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love doing interviews, but yesterday I interviewed 3 retailers about the exact same subjects. And I think about the third one, I started disassociating about what I was talking about. And I was like, I need to change the structure of this interview. Otherwise, I'm going to go insane from asking the same questions over and over.
Yeah. You start moving into the abstract space of what are words? What we were talking about comics. What is life? Philosophy.
What is Batman?
Yeah. Oh, but we keep talking about Batman. And you're just saying the word over and over.
Oh, yeah.
And then, thinking about capitalism.
I love that you're doing all these speaking engagements and you're going to all these festivals and you're going to SPX and all that stuff. And then right in the middle of it, you're doing New York Comic Con, which is just an orgy of insanity in the Javits Center in New York.
Yes, I am excited. I really am excited about New York Comic Con. Very tangential. I'm writing my first book and it's set in New York, so I get to do some research there. Yeah, it has nothing to do with any of the topics that you planned for us to discuss. You planned. I don't know why I said that so accusingly. That we both agreed to discuss. But I love New York. I usually go there more times in a year, but this is just the second time I'm making it out this year. And I haven't been to New York Comic Con since before the pandemic, so I'm excited to go back. New York Comic Con is where I met my agents for the first time. It's where I met one of my mentees for the first time, so it's a bit of a homecoming in a way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I will be there, so see you there.
Yay, that's great.
But it is. I think one thing, I hope that you have time to do this. It sounds like with New York, at least, you're going to have a little bit of time to kind of I'm going to be on the street, go around, do stuff that is not going to festivals.
Oh, yeah.
So are you planning a little me time in there to some degree?
Oh, yeah. My biggest thing when I go to New York is that I never get to go to enough museums. I maybe will get to one.
Yeah.
I would love to get to, I think the Frick just reopened recently. I never get to spend enough time in any single museum, so I might go back to the Whitney, have to go to the Guggenheim. We'll see. it's a museum that I know I should go to again. I think I went like 10 years ago, is the Met, and I just have to get back. I don't know. So yes, that's my me time, is me looking at a bunch of paintings and going, and then reading Wikipedia articles as I don't know.
This is what your book's about. It's going to look at art and going.
It's about being in New York and going, Yeah.
So
like
many
Kermit the
opportunities.
Frog.
I went to the Met in 2023 and it was lovely. My wife and I, when we travel to New York for the con, we always try to have like a little bit of vacation time in front. And so every time we go to like a couple museums, and I very much enjoyed it. It was a lot. It was a lot going on, but I mean, it's New York, so it's always a lot. But I did want to ask, who actually plans these book tours, festival tours, excuse me?
Book tours or festival tours. It varies from author to author and publisher to publisher. My publisher probably, okay, actually I'll start with last year when Madeline Rupert and I published our graphic novel Bunt. That book tour, probably 90% of it was planned by us, and we tried to go to places like within both of our like hometowns or where we were living at the time. And this book tour, I would say, maybe half of it is planned by my publisher. Publishers for if they have the budget to, and they are like, depending on the title, they will send out requests to different festivals to see if they can get their authors there. Some of the festivals reached out to me initially, so I just like shipped it over to the Macmillan publicist. So, but there are other spots that are like I have a good relationship with Rice University in Houston, Texas. So the professor will reach out to me directly and be like, can you speak at my classes? So yeah, it's a bit of a mix. And then some people, they just use like speaking agents and don't have to worry about a thing. It's just like, go here, show up, do this presentation. So it varies.
I was interested to see the book tours that show up for, it seems like, I mean, it's almost entirely a book market graphic novel type thing. You don't really see you don't see Scott Snyder going around doing like the absolute Batman book tour. I feel like he should, but he should. I feel like book tours are great because you get out there. Like I remember Tilly Walden just did a big one for the most recent Clementine, and I have to imagine like that's like really good for the book and it builds a lot of excitement for it. And I don't know, you might make new fans you wouldn't make otherwise.
Exactly. It's buzzy. It makes the book release like an event. And yeah, book market is so different from like traditional comics. You really only see like floppy comic, like DC Marvel guys doing convention, like what is it? Convention chain? I'm looking for a word. Yeah, they're doing the convention
like the
chain. Circuit. That's the word I was looking for. Convention circuit. So, I mean, I guess that's where you're like, oftentimes you're asked to come there. You're like, they may pay for you to come there. So maybe that's what they're used to, as opposed to a good old book tour.
I will say, I say that nobody really does like that stuff with the direct market. A couple pals of mine, and Matthew Rosenberg and Tyler Boss, they had a couple new books that they were launching, and they literally did like a van tour of like comic shops around the entire nation. Like they were doing tour, like a signing earlier in the day in, like, I'm trying to remember what, like Olympia, Washington, and then they had to drive like multiple hours to do another signing the same day in Seattle. Man. And I'm like, no, thank you. I hope you guys looked at a map before doing this, because this seems psychotic.
That's that much driving. It'll put a toll on you. Wow. I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, that's a lot. But all right, let's get into your comic work. But before we get into your current projects, I actually want to talk about your post-check please life a bit.
Post-check please.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because so you for listeners that don't know, Check Please is the incredible webcomic that you did before, or that turned into a graphic novel series about a college freshman, champion figure skater and baking vlogger turned hockey player named Eric Biddy Biddle, who is navigating coming out of the closet and becoming a hockey player at the same time. I love it. It's where I discovered your work. I think it's where a lot of people did. Flip will be your third graphic novel since, and they have all been in like, in our eyes, basically like a 1.5 year window, which is really kind of wild. I know that a lot of that is based off of sequencing and everything, but After you finished Check Please, how did you figure out what you wanted to do next?
Well, that's a great question and good point. Yeah, because if if you look at the last year and a half, I guess 3 books have come out, which is weird.
You had
I
Bunt and you had Barda and
Barda
now
and now
Flip.
Flip, and I think it is because of the pandemic. I was just, like, doing, like, 3 projects, and they all happened to be coming out, like, kind of stacked. But yeah, I mean, the full transparency on, like, my comics career is that when First Second, which is an imprint of Macmillan, when they signed me for, signed Check Please to basically publish Check Please, it was a 3-book deal.
Uh,
So they got both Check Please volumes, and they're like, "We're gonna need 1 more untitled young adult graphic novel from you." And I was like, "That's totally fine by me." Like, "Thank you so much." And after I finished Check Please, I was like, okay, I want to write this next YA graphic novel. Do I have an idea big enough that I could kind of sink my teeth into? Um, and so that's when I started working on Flip. I had this idea and it formed from there. At the same time, I don't recommend anyone doing this. um, but I also started working on Barda. I think the sequence was I finished Check Please, started formulating ideas from Flip, started thumbnailing and scripting it, started to pencil it, stopped abruptly penciling it, started working on Barda, finished all of Barda, and then returned to working on Flip and finishing that. So with a bunch of things in between. So
like
that's
in
why.
another
Yeah.
entirely other graphic novel in Bunt.
Oh wait. Oh yeah. And then we had to finish Bunt too.
Well, I remember
Yeah.
we talked at, I think it was Emerald City Comic Con
Yeah.
2022, and you were showing me pages from Bunt, and I think Mad was there. I think Mad Rupert was there. Maybe not.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just remember it being like, it seems like you got a lot going on.
Yeah, that's kind of like the phrase that people often use to describe me. It's like, wow, you have a lot going on. Yeah, but in this case, like Madeline was drawing the book. I had already like finished writing the script, but I think it was 2023. I was finishing up Barda while also doing edits on Bunt.
Hmm.
And and then I had to switch over to finishing Flip. So it was just everything was just like kind of collapsing together. So
What
yeah,
was
and
that?
then also pitching Orion. Like it never stops.
I have so many different questions I want to ask about that sequencing because it's so much. But do you feel like you can see a difference between the before and after on Flip
Oh
because of
yeah.
that? You can?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can see the even just working on like and we'll get to Orion, but even just working on Orion, I can see the difference in growth between like when I first was thumbnailing it to now like I'm inking it. Flip Flip, I learned so much about drawing on Flip. It's crazy. The book, I think the book looks good, but I can tell that because I started formulating the idea for it in 2020 and finished in 2024. Like I grew. I drew an entire graphic novel in between. So
I mean, even between, like, you took a break in the
yeah,
middle of Flip to do Barda, and
yeah,
like all those pages, there's no way that's not going to affect you.
exactly. I
And
learned a
so,
lot.
yeah, it's got to be interesting to look at those pages because I'm maybe I'm giving like artists too much credit, but I feel like it's entirely possible you could, like, even without thinking contextually, this is where I was, knowing that you might be able to look at the art and be like, that's when I started, oh, that's where I picked it back up from, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't think you're giving artists too much credit at all. There's times when you really just something clicks and you're like, "Oh, this is where I finally figured out like how to
Yeah.
articulate hands in a certain way." And you can kind of see it.
Um, I, the, oh my God, I totally spaced what I was gonna say. Oh, I know. So, it was a lot, undeniably a lot. What was that actually like? Like, did it feel overwhelming? Did it feel like too much? Or is it just kind of how you operate so you're able to kind of manage that because that's your wavelength?
I think that is simply how I operate. I always have Like if my I'm about to jump into an analogy that I've not thought about, so let's see if I can land it. If I
I'm
think
excited.
about my workload as like burners on the oven, there's always stuff on the back burners, and there's always like two pots in the front that I'm managing, just checking on, stirring one, adding a little bit of salt and pepper and garlic salt to the other, and I switch things around and let things cool and then come back to them. So it's like, sometimes you have a stew that really needs to simmer, so you don't have to pay attention to it. Another time you have, like, a stir fry that you have to keep flipping. So, I'd never try to take on too many projects at once that need all of my attention. Like, right now, the 2 things at the front of the burner are, like, I have a tour, which means I have to completely switch from drawing pages to doing marketing and publicity, and then I also am drawing Orion, and I'm letting that simmer, and I'm going to return to it with fresh eyes, and hopefully my inking and art will be better because I've taken a few weeks away from it.
Yeah. I mean, Barda's interesting though, because it sounds like you had Bunt and you had
Yes.
Flip that were they were on the burners. They were
Yes.
cooking. But then all of a sudden you got a rush order basically where they're
Kind
like,
of.
we need this. This is the priority. How does something like that work out? Is it just like the nature of the project and like this is how the deal works and First Second had a little bit more flexibility in there?
Yeah, exactly. First Second is a great company to work with. It's a great, it's a great publisher. 'Cause as an imprint, they really do care about the artist, and they really give people the time that they need. So, with Flip, I had the most flexibility on. I could have turned it in a year later, I could have turned it in a year earlier. They just knew that I would turn it in.
Right.
Because I had that flexibility that DC is pretty flexible, but not as flexible. Let's just say, I don't know. Yeah, it's DC. They were like, "Okay, we would like this book in a reasonable amount of time." And I just was able to shift gears to knock it out and then turn it in.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it comes down to, like the short order cook or the chef of it all, where you're like moving everything around, trying to figure out what the right sequencing is. And I don't know, it's just the nature of it. I do want to note though, one thing that's interesting. You said you signed a 3-book deal. 3
Yes.
books. Check
Yes.
please. Check please, Sticks and Stones.
Yes.
And then you had Flip,
Yep, and that's it.
Bunt, First
But
Second.
Bunt was another contract that we signed
Oh, okay.
because the 3-book deal was just books that I would write and illustrate.
Oh,
Bunt
okay.
was totally different.
That does make Bunt kind of interesting though,
Mm,
because Bunt, which is full name Bunt Striking Out on Financial Aid with Mad Rupert, a graphic novel you only wrote. You mostly write and draw your own stuff.
yeah,
I think Bunt is fantastic. It's
it
great.
is.
But is writing I am curious if you're interested in writing more for other artists.
I would write more for other artists, but it has to be the right project.
Yeah.
I really don't think so. To be quite honest with you, writing Bunt taught me a lot about comics in general. Madeline is a wonderful teacher as well as a collaborator, and I just learned from our experience that when you write comics and you ask someone to take that much of their life to kind of bring your or our idea to fruition, that's kind of asking a lot. So I don't seek to do that. I don't think that that's like a small thing to ask of somebody. But if I were to write, let's say, more superhero comics, then I could see like writing for an artist, because that's the traditional model in American superhero comics, like DC, anyway. Um, but I think I'm kind of mentioned that I'm writing novels now.
Yeah.
That's the type of writing that I could find myself doing, where um I have to do all the work to make sure that the story is readable and engaging. And, there may not be that much art. Maybe it's like slightly illustrated, but I can see that as more fulfilling than just writing graphic novels. I don't know. Once you grow up doing both, it's really hard to be like, okay, I'm just going to write the script.
And now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. As one of the most innovative comic publishers, Vault Comics has released some of the most exciting independent comics of the past 10 years. Vault's current lineup includes a murderer's row of titles like Post Malone's brand new comic series Big Rig, Money Shot Big Bang by Patton Oswalt, Tim Seeley, and Garth Graham, and the hit sapphic shenanigans of Cornhowl's Lilith, all of which are available at your local comic shop. Vault's backlist boasts a who's who of comic creators, many of whom have been guests on this very podcast, including titles from the likes of Rom V, Cy Spurrier, Christopher Cantwell, Tim Seeley, Aaron Campbell, Liana Kangas, and many more. Vault is even giving off-panel listeners 10% off on orders of Vault titles from www.vaultcomics.com by using the code OFFPANEL, that's one word, at checkout. So go to Vault's website and use the code OFFPANEL at checkout for 10% off your entire order. And now, back to the show. Yeah, I mean, I do think that's the interesting thing for somebody like you, because I have to imagine when you're in like graphic novel mode, you're thinking like art is part of your writing. Like you can't separate visuals from writing. And so by nature, asking someone else to do it does two things. You're like, I'm putting a lot of weight on this person, but also I'm asking for them to compare to the vision that I have in my head.
Exactly.
So writing novels seems like it would be a good delineation, because then you could write and not have to necessarily worry about the visuals beyond any illustrations you might happen to do for it.
Yeah, so two things with that. The first thing, like when you're writing a novel, it's such a completely different craft that asks a lot more of you, especially if you're writing like third person point of view, third person limited, where you're spending a lot more time with the character and their internal world, and the sensations is where you kind of replace the visual, because you can't really show a picture. You can show how something feels, you can make it more visceral, and that, I feel, does a lot of all the heavy lifting in storytelling. But when you're writing a comic script and you're working with an artist, I mean, the only way Bunt worked is because Mad Rupert is such a fantastic cartoonist. And I just knew that whatever idea that I had, however she would interpret it, would be like exactly what I envisioned or better. Those are the only two options. There was never a case where I was like, that's not really what she has, such like visual prowess and such draftsmanship that like that's really the only person I could like imagine writing for. Well, there's obviously there's tons, but like because she's my friend, I trust her as well. So yeah, I've discovered a lot about writing and storytelling in that way. So I have to step outside of myself and what I'm usually used to.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I have to say that is actually one thing that you do really well, because a lot of people who work in comics kind of stick to comics. You actually happen to get into different forms of the word like comic,
Yeah.
in the sense that you don't just make graphic novels, you also do cartoons for the New Yorker.
Yeah.
And you've also done stand-up comedy.
Yes.
Which is for somebody who can do speaking engagements, I'm not going to say it's the exact same thing, but you're willing to put yourself in front of a crowd. Is it important for you to have creative things for yourself outside your work on graphic novels?
Yes, I'm nodding vigorously here because stand-up, okay, yes. First, with the New Yorker, I have really fallen in love with the community of New Yorker cartoonists. There's no better crowd than people who decide that they want to kill themselves over making funny things to be put in this old ass magazine. It is such a cool crowd of people. There's about like 100 to 200 people who submit like maybe once or twice a year. Some people submit every week. And it's a funny Discord. The Discord server of New Yorker Cartoonist is kind of what you imagine. It's some of the coolest people being like, I'm going here, I'm doing this. Is this funny? Commiserating over editorial decisions. So yeah, it's fun to do something that has nothing to do with graphic novels, that's like short form and that just needs to be funny.
Yeah.
With comedy, it's a similar thing. And I think I have a lot of friends who are comic book artists, but they make sculpture, they do ceramics, or they dance, or they like sing. And just having another outlet that's less permanent and more immediate than graphic novels, which, comics and graphic novels, they take time. That's why we love them. We get time to think about our craft. But the immediacy of doing like stand-up comedy is really fun. But honestly, mostly, I always likened stand-up to being like, doing stand-up comedy is like having a book club with a bunch of depressed 20-year-olds who are all vaping. And you just kind of go every week and you see the same people try out the same joke. Everyone's falling on their ass, bombing. Um, and then yeah, when you start doing shows, it's just about like, okay, yeah, I've seen Chris's set like 30 times, but it's going to be cool to see the audience laugh, and then we'll hang out in the green room and gossip about other comics. That's what I love. I love like kind of doing just enough comedy to get like an inside look at people who like really they want to be professional comedians, like they want that to be their income. So that's great, kind of getting an insight to that world.
So you're like part stand-up comic, part anthropologist?
Yo, 100%. Like sitting in a room with a bunch of comics who are going over beef that they have with a certain club in town. There's nothing sweeter than hearing the gossip. And stand-up comedians they're wonderful people, all insane. Every last one, including myself at times. So and also they're funny when they tell stories. So it's cool. I mean, if I have to do just a little bit of work to like come up with the new material, work on my set, so I get to sit in the back room and like hear all the stories, it's worth it.
I know somebody who spent a lot of their 20s just taking on different experiences where they could like learn from really random stuff. Like they were a long haul trucker driver, and like that was an experience. They also, from what I understand, briefly joined a group of people who actually believed that they were vampires in Florida.
Cool.
And he didn't stick around for that for too long, but he was like, it was pretty interesting. And I'm like, I imagine it would be pretty interesting. Sometimes putting yourself into other situations helps you figure things out. And he's very successful now, so good for him.
Perfect.
I don't know if it was the vampires or the trucking, but either way.
One of those experiences taught him the life lessons that he needed to be successful.
And the secret to immortal life, which is really important. So, all right, let's talk about Flip, your new graphic novel from First Second that arrives in stores on September 23rd. It's about Chi-Chi, a poor kid of color at a private school filled with rich white students. She's a K-pop super fan. She's all about Say forever. And she's a soon-to-be graduate who is looking to ask her crush in Flip Henderson, swimmer extraordinaire, and the most popular guy in school to prom, a promposal, a term I was unfamiliar with, but it totally works. But instead, the two of them fall into a classic body swap situation. It is both exactly what it sounds like and so much more, and it is one of my favorite comics of the year. As I was reading this, I couldn't help but feel that this was one of the most, if not the most, autobiographical stories that you've done, and your author's note in the back certainly confirmed that. I do want to talk about that, at least to start. Like, what are the origins of Flip, and what made this a story you had to tell?
Thank you. That was a perfect summary of the book, and especially noting that, like, I feel like it is a classic body swap story. I think anybody who watched Freakier Friday with Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, like, they're just going to like it because it's like a body swap. But at the same time, it does get surprisingly deep. And I've had my agent said it made her tear up. One of my business managers said like it made him tear up. So, oh, good. Okay, yes, I collected another one because I think if you are a person who's ever had self-doubt, negative self-talk, or just felt strange or like unseen or misunderstood and kind of blamed yourself for that, this book really addresses that head on and asks yourself to be a little bit more compassionate and accepting that you're just a human being.
Can I make a really quick comment about that?
Please.
I think the thing that's really amazing about this book, and I'm not going to spoil it, is what it is in terms of being a love story. And I think that that's the moment that really got me, like the waterworks, because like there's a moment in the book and it just all kind of comes to, it crystallizes in a moment, and it is just so well done. And it builds off of everything that preceded it. And the funny thing is like I'm speaking about it vaguely. I feel like people might guess as to what I mean because of that. I also suspect that they would not actually guess what the real thing is. And I think that that's part of the reason why it's such a special book. But anyways, sorry to interrupt.
Yes, there's I think I know what moment you're talking about. We won't spoil it, but there are a few moments when you realize, oh, this is a love story, but it's a love story in a way that you might not imagine.
Right.
But the inspiration for Flip really started with a question. So I'm first generation. I also was on scholarship, and I went to Yale, which is, you know, a very diverse school, and most of the friends I've made from Yale are very diverse. But it is a very rich school with some of the richest kids, not just in America, but the world. And being socialized in like white schools growing up and then going to Yale, there were so many times when I felt invisible, especially when it related to crushes. And when I internalized those feelings, it obviously did not make me feel good. So Flip started with that question of like, why am I internalizing these feelings? How do people end up thinking this way? How did I like work myself? How did I find a way out of that thinking? And like, how can I tell people about this experience and how to maybe reflect more on those feelings of like negative self talk and just feelings of maybe inadequacy, and specifically for Black girls who might think this way, kind of taking that moment to say, like, hey, this is not something that, this is not your fault.
Yeah.
And a huge inspiration was I started the book and then I started reading The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. And the forward of that book the forward of that book kind of reminds me a little bit of my author's note, not in terms of writing skill, just in terms of, yeah, I'm not going to compare myself to Nobel Prize laureate Toni Morrison, but she writes about the genesis of The Bluest Eye, which is when one of her friends, a Black girl, wished she had blue eyes. She wished that she had some type of like beauty that she didn't think she possessed. And Toni Morrison was like, as a kid, was just repulsed by that. She was like, "Can't you see that you're already beautiful?" And also on the author's note, she describes how the book, The Bluest Eye, is it's a good book, it's a good attempt, but it's not perfect in landing exactly what she wanted. And I felt the same way. I didn't realize what Flip was about until I was done. And then I wrote the author's note and I was like, okay, well, I hope people get something from this. So that is the inspiration of this book, self-acceptance.
I mean, this is an aside, not working off completely what you're talking about, but I love what you did with the visuals of the book to kind of reinforce the body swap parts. Because you mentioned The Bluest Eye. I mean, like having that type of visual shorthand where the eyes go with each individual to like help us understand which character is which. You did a lot of really smart visual things in this book. And like, I mean, it is funny, like thinking about you as a writer, because as a prose writer, because I love your cartooning. I think you're exceptional at it. And I think that like in my mind, separating you as a creative person from your art is like such a fascinating thing. But very specifically in this book, I just think you did so many smart things with the body swap thing, because I think there's a version of this book where that part is a bit more difficult to ascertain, but you kind of problem solved that in advance, and good job by you.
Thank you so much. I try to make it clear. Sometimes I wish I had gone back and just put arrows on, like, this is Flip, this is Chi Chi. But I think the big thing of having the characters switch eye color
Yeah.
is to evoke obviously the bluest eye, but also like Chi Chi confronting this gaze, like the male gaze, as you might call it, that has impacted her. So I wanted to make it's so literal
Yeah.
that you can't miss it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's very important storytelling for the characters and everything, and it says a lot. But I did want to ask, like, did its autobiographical nature make this a more difficult project to take on than other ones you've done so far?
Yes. Yes, period. No, yes, in that it was drawn, so much of the book was drawn from my life, literally down to the floor plan of Chi-Chi's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
I had to revisit so
Do you
much
mean
of
with
my
their
past.
parents or
Oh
with?
yeah,
Oh yeah,
where she lives with her parents. And I mean her dorm is the same exact floor plan as the my dorm in college. Even though Chi-Chi's in high school. But I had to think so much about my own life and my own pains too. The first 4 actually, the first 5 boys that Chi-Chi mentions. I think the book opens with Chi-Chi saying, like, my name is Chi-Chi Ike, and there are 3 things wrong with me. I tend to have crushes on rich white boys who don't know I exist, including one gun-in boy who doesn't know I exist. Every single one of those boys, including Flip, is based off of a boy that I had a crush on who basically didn't know I existed.
Mm-hmm.
So to the point where, like, I've asked boys out and had, like, kind of humiliating rejections. And it goes on. I can like list the things, the moments and the experiences and the characters that come from people in my real life. But the reason why it's not autobiographical, other than the fantastical body swapping, is the things that I wish that I could have told Chi-Chi, the ideas I wish I could have imparted, the things I wish I could have told myself, the ideas that I wish I could have imparted to myself, the friends that I wish I wish I had surrounded myself with. Like, there's so many little moments that I think would have made me think differently about myself had I had those opportunities, or had I had those friends, or had I had those mentors to speak to. In the author's note, I talk about how I never had a black male teacher, and I could be naive, but I do think that would have affected me tremendously in the most positive way if I had, like, just, like, someone other than a family member that I could speak to. Just, like, it would have been great. Like, I only even have, like, one black female teacher, like, but, coulda, woulda, shoulda. I gave that to Chi-Chi, and I think that character is, like, really crucial to her self-worth.
I love that you gave her Yesenia and Esther, and like
Yes.
giving her those characters. Like, I mean, there's a part of that where it's like it's giving yourself what you didn't have in a sense, but also
Exactly.
it's from a narrative standpoint, it's kind of necessary because it's like if it was just Flip and just Chi-Chi, it would have been a much different and much, I think, more difficult book to make too.
Yes. Esther and Yesenia are some of my favorite characters that I've ever created. As her best friends, they do such a good job of kind of correcting Chi-Chi's, like, she's an imperfect narrator, or unreliable narrator. Like, they do a good job of being like, actually, she's really cool and funny, and we like her and we love her because of who she is, where we're really only seeing Chi-Chi's internal monologue of, like, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough, I'm weird, I'm strange. Also, as 2 black girls who are nerds, it helps complicate the monolith of, like, this is the only way to be a black nerdy person. We have Esther, who obviously comes from some money, is very mean to people who are mean to her friends. She's so funny. I love writing her. And then we have Yesenia, who is, like, queer and, like, very, like, a STEM person, very chill, and Chi-Chi fits in so well right between them. And I don't know, I just we we always talk about representation, and I'm like, oh, I have a funny story. Like, and maybe I don't want to go on too much of a tangent,
Oh, go
but
for it.
I've been posting about this book on TikTok. I've been doing some type of, like, guerrilla marketing. I had a TikTok that went, I would say, viral. It's at, like, 500,000 views.
Sure.
And the way that the comments section was just this war zone of every black nerdy person on TikTok, every black nerdy teen, I'm assuming, being like, why is she this way? She's like, why is representation, like, why isn't she, like, a nerd? Like, how come she's not a baddie? Like, there's a lot of people complaining that she wasn't a baddie. And a lot of other people being like, no, that's me. This is exactly me. And it just shows that we don't have enough representation. The fact that people are arguing over this one character and how she's portrayed.
Right. It's like she needs to be all archetypes at one time.
Exactly. And even with Esther and Yesenia and Chi-Chi, they cover a lot of different archetypes, but still there's not enough. So
Yeah, and like their fandom orients on like K-pop
yes.
and so it's like, why not this or why not that? I mean,
Yes.
like, because no one can be everything, and I
Exactly.
honestly think that like that type of thing, I actually think there's 2 superpowers, 2 secret narrative superpowers to this book that I think tie the whole thing together, which is probably overstating it, maybe not, I don't know. BGBB, the K-pop
Yes.
band that they're really into.
Yeah.
Shockingly important to the plot. Just absolutely staggeringly important to the plot. And then there is what is the phrase? I wrote it down. It is a extant messenger bot named Whimsy Bot, which is like very crucial to the story in a way that like there's like a comp from the movie Big that I could give that would be a good way to do it, but I'm not going to because it would spoil the story. But it is interesting where it's like you kind of in a like I love how you took the body swap idea and you worked in these youthful yet autobiographical, because you were into K-pop yourself, elements that were like relatable and spoke to the fandoms and spoke to how young people operate. And it all just kind of weaved together in a really effective way that like, I don't know, worked perfectly for the narrative. I don't even have a question.
I mean, thank you. I mean,
good job.
Thank you for, that one bot is like based off, I don't know if you remember AOL Instant Messenger.
Oh, yeah.
It's based off Smarter Child, if you remember that. You can talk to this one bot called Smarter Child, and I spent a lot of time probably abusing Smarter Child, calling it stupid or something. But I just felt that that's exactly what Chi-Chi would do. And then, yes, the K-pop band. I named it. People aren't. It's not even an Easter egg, but I named that band after my two favorite superheroes, Blue Beetle
Booster
and Booster
Gold, Blue Beetle.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing. Did you have fun building out the band?
It did. It was hard. I think it was hard because I realized at a certain point I won't get to the level of lore that I want. I had to finish the story. It's Chi-Chi's story. But yeah, it was fun.
And now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. Looking for sci-fi comics which go further than you've ever been before? Look no further than 2000 AD. It's the galaxy's greatest comic. Whether you're a new or returning reader, September is the perfect time to try out 2000 AD with the launch of 2000 AD issue 2450, a jump-on issue with a fresh start for every story. Featuring a terrifying Judge Dredd story by Rob Williams and Henry Flint, the issue also has a major new Rogue Trooper story from the team of Alex DeCampi, Neil Edwards, and a whole lot more. Get a print subscription to 2000 AD and it'll arrive through your mailbox every week, and your first issue is free. Or subscribe digitally and you can download DRM free copies of each issue for only $9 a month. That's 128 pages of incredible comics every month for less than $10. Head to 2000AD.com and click on subscribe now, or download the 2000 AD app and start reading today. And now, back to the show. I had a good time talking to my wife about biases afterwards, because that was a term that I was unfamiliar with from the K-pop world. We were talking about biases we have, and it's just like a new lexicon that has been introduced to my world that well, and also like it is kind of funny. I mean, I'm not saying like this is purely coincidental, but the fact that like K-pop Demon Hunters has like lit the world on fire has like introduced a lot of very specific language to the people's world very quickly, and it's fascinating.
I'm really happy that like another body swap movie came out, and then also K-pop Demon Hunters is out. I'm like, good. Very like current references that I can make when I'm talking to the teens.
Yeah. So I did want to ask about the body swap of it all. What made that the right way into this story? Because like you could have made it autobiographical and it would have been like purely so, and it would have been way different, but adding the fantastical angle is essential. So what made that the right way to get into it?
That's a really good question, because that's really why the story became interesting. As soon as I thought, like, what if a girl swapped with her crush? All the problems that needed to be solved suddenly became what the story was about. Like, how do they get back? Like, how would the crush view life in her body? How would she view life in the crush's body? And it really just came from that desire of like, okay, like I think I was thinking about like former crushes, or like the boys the boys that I like wanted, whose tension I wanted. Like, what would happen if I inhabited their lives? What if I, like, what would I see? How would it be like? Would I still find myself invisible? And once I started asking those questions, the body swap mechanic became so available as a narrative device, and then the answers just came from just writing the story.
Yeah. Well, and I like the empathy you have for Flip in the story too,
Yes.
because like his situation is complicated in a way that like doesn't seem like it on the surface and kind of makes him an ideal body swap partner because they both view themselves and their worlds differently than the rest of the world views them. And I think that that is a very rich, fertile vein you have available to you there.
Yeah, Flip as a character. So I'm waiting for this book to be banned, which someone's probably going to ban it. Like Check Please was banned in like one county, and they're going to ban it when Flip is like challenged. Let's say it's going to be challenged before it's banned. They're going to try to challenge it because there is some like tasteful nudity. It's just a girl being in her body, but they're going to call it this big capital T. They're going to say it. Oh, it's profane. It was like profane. It's not good. Um, but I'm waiting for someone to push back on this story because it is about Blackness. It is about like Black girlhood. It is about, there's even just some discussions of gender within it. And I am waiting for someone to maybe make the accusation that like Flip as a white character is like being put down.
Right.
And then I'll be able to tell that they haven't read the story because I tried to make Flip as human as possible. He's based
Yeah.
off one of my best friends in high school, who experienced literally like their father experienced corporate, I don't even know what you would call it, white collar
Malfeasance.
crimes. Yeah, corporate malfeasance. There was some white collar dubiousness going on,
Yeah.
and on the on the outside, they looked like so happy and popular, and was like they were playing sports, but on the inside, they were going through a huge life upheaval that like I got to see because we were close as friends. So Flip is a very human character.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say this is one body swap comment I want to make that is a very mild spoiler. So Chi Chi, the second thing you need to know about her is that when she starts to cry, she cannot stop.
Yeah.
And that does not matter what body she's in, which means
Yes.
that it is a purely emotional thing, not a physiological one, which is fascinating.
That's a good point. I actually didn't realize that. I'm like, oh yeah, she'll cry if she's Flip. She'll cry if she's her.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it says it really speaks to Chi Chi in specific, like who she is at her core. Like she can't. That's one of the three things you need to know about her, and it doesn't matter what body she's in. I thought that was really interesting. But you know, one of the last questions I have for you on Flip, I find your career interesting in a number of ways, but you did Check Please as a web comic in front of for a lack of better words, a live studio audience.
Yeah.
You knew what was connecting and what wasn't while you were doing it. Books like Flip and Barda are not like that at all. Maybe even supercharged because you were starting them during the pandemic where you were in isolation effectively. How does that comparative isolation change the experience of creating for you?
So when you're serializing things, it is like a bit of a like tightrope walk because you are trying to make sure you're telling a story, but you also want things to land, and your audience will give you immediate feedback on the things that they like and don't like, which can make you a little more cautious as a creator because you don't want to upset the people who are reading the story along with you, the live studio audience aspect of it. And when you're creating in isolation or with this idea of like you're going to publish the whole story at once, you have a lot of time to reflect. You have a lot of time to make bold decisions. And I think it is kind of like almost a bigger gamble because you're hoping it all lands everything at once. So I remember when I started, I think I did the last like 10 comics of Check Please in isolation because I needed to finish the story before it was published by First Second. And I made a lot more bold choices. And I think I'm doing the same thing with Orion now. And I did the same thing with Barda because I was like, I have a vision for this. I I'm a Jack Kirby acolyte at this point. I've really studied his stuff. I think when everyone reads this all together, they will understand it as a young adult adaptation. So
I do think it's interesting though, because like with the live studio audience element, you're talking about how you don't want to, upset or like you don't want to like go in a direction that the readers are going to react adversely to, so to speak. But at the same time, I imagine you also don't want to go the other direction where you're chasing their admiration and things like that. And so it's like, it is fascinating because there's a huge plus sides and huge negatives to both directions on both sides, because it's like when you're creating in isolation, you have no idea if anything is resonating. And by the
Exactly.
time it comes out, it's just like it's like the binge watch experience. And like, they're either going to love it or they're going to hate it. And you have no way to change that.
Exactly. You nailed it on the head. So I am thinking about going back to some self-publishing. I have some stories that I will be serializing, but I still, finishing up Orion. Oh my goodness, it's going to be several more months of working in isolation. So I'm trying to get the best of both worlds.
I did. So talking about Orion, talking about Barda, those are the graphic novels you're doing or have done at DC Comics. Like Orion comes out July 2026.
Yes.
Barda is already out. Has working with DC, a company that has an idea of how it wants to tell stories to some degree, shaped, like changed how you work at all?
I'll say for the most part, no. I think the only thing that has changed is that I work more closely with an editor and have checkpoints during different parts of the graphic novel process. But other than that, what DC has been, I'm on the record for saying DC has been one of the best experiences I have working with them. I think once you are your foot is in the door at DC, they trust you as an artist or as a writer or as a creator, and they just want to see what you'll do with their characters. That's how it's been for me getting the chance to work on Jack Kirby's Fourth World. It's any note, my first editor was Jim Chadwick, who has since retired, and then my current editor is Courtney Jordan, who was an assistant to Jim. All they want is clarity and the vision that I bring to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're so supportive. They're so collaborative. They just want to make sure everything is very clear. So all their notes are asking questions about, why did I make this choice? How do you think it's going to land? How do you think this is going to read? And I mean, I guess, yeah, if my process has changed, I'm just try to be a little bit more clear in my intent. So I've had a quite good experience with DC. I swear I'm not being paid to say this.
I always heard that DC is very big on outlining. I have no idea if that's the case for this.
I don't. Well, I'm a really big outliner. I turn in these huge
fit
documents.
Well, then.
Yeah. So yeah, I've turned in just these massive documents with all these citations, because I'm always a little scared they're gonna say this can't happen because of blah blah blah, and I'll say, well, actually, in issue 6 of Mr. Miracle. Well, so I have a lot of citations.
I love it. So were you a Jack Kirby acolyte before taking on Barda?
I can't say I was, which is a bit remiss of me. I have always gravitated towards DC Comics. It's
JLU
always,
was really big for you, right?
yeah, JLU.
Justice League Unlimited.
Yes,
Yeah.
I watched that series so much. Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, and then reading JLI was probably the first time I saw Scott and Barda. But when I was pitching this idea, Barda really just stood out. And I had 3 ideas that I pitched to DC, and they actually wanted one, and then me and my agent were like, actually, can we please do Barda? And then I got to do Barda. And as I started to research Barda and the Fourth World, I became so obsessed with this portion of Jack Kirby's career. I still don't know much about his time at Marvel or his time making romance comics or war comics. But this time when he was in his 50s, he had nothing to prove to anyone at this point. This guy really was like, I'm going to create a bunch of OCs. I'm going to try to make a theology, and it's going to be so sprawling and so massive and so creative and so freaking weird. Like I don't think I've admired a creative narrative pursuit this much ever. And it's just so cool. I'm trying to say it in a more concrete way. The ideas that Jack Kirby wants to convey in terms of good and evil and the grandiosity of justice and humanity, it is so it's not only noble, it's just like a fascinating narrative experiment that he succeeds in. And getting to play in that world and like kind of refine it, not refine it at some points, because the man, he didn't have an editor, so there's a lot of plot holes. But to refine it into like a young adult, like a digestible young adult package, it's so fun because there's just this wealth. This playground is just huge to play in. So
I think the thing that's really amazing about the Fourth World stuff is like it was objectively like at that point the most ironclad bulletproof comic creator you could have, and he went so ham that people didn't even know what to do with it.
yeah,
And like going that hard and like going that intense with just your ideas and like your imagination, it's so, I mean, how do you not respect that? Even if like the first volume only lasted for like 14 issues at first or something
yeah,
like that. It,
yeah.
it's kind of amazing.
It was an ambitious take. An ambitious, how about I say, an ambitious attempt, um, doing New Gods. I mean, it started with the Jimmy Olsen comics, which are, I'm so sorry, Jack Kirby. Yo, I can't read those. I can read some of them, but they're a lot. He was just like, because you know the story. He was like, he left Marvel and he went to DC, and he literally was like, "Give me your worst selling comic. I'm gonna make
Hmm.
it your best selling comic." And then he gets Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, makes an acid trip after acid trip. It is so weird, but it starts off our fourth world. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I guess I have to read these too. Why is Jimmy Olsen small now? They cloned him? What's happening? So, yeah, going ham is a good way to explain it. He just was like, I'm going to do whatever I want. You know what? In this conversation, I'm realizing he had reached the level of like Thelonious Monk in that he was just doing jazz
Yeah.
as comics. It was just whatever. Like, and yes, it was all about the notes you don't play or the things you don't explain.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing too is then he goes back to Marvel and he does Eternals, and it's also
Yeah.
like just psychotic too. I mean,
Yeah.
respectfully psychotic.
Yes.
I mean, it's just like it's the big ideas. It's the jazz of it all. It's not like, I don't know, like the I mean, even Fantastic Four is pretty crazy to a certain point. But anyways, I did want to ask, so were you asked to pitch by DC, and then you came up with like the 3 different projects that you were interested in? Was that how it worked?
What an honor to be asked to pitch by DC. Kind of. I worked on a 4-page anthology. I think it was Harley Quinn 75. And
Hmm.
then I reached out to the editor of that and I was like, "May I pitch?" And
Oh,
then
okay.
then they were like, "Okay, yeah, give us 3 stories to work to that we can deliberate on." And then I pitched them 3 stories, and I would say the most stubborn part was them saying, "Yes, we would like this story," and then me saying, "No, I want to work on this story," and they were like, "Okay, you can work on this story." So,
I mean, the
yeah.
good thing is like I've always heard creators say that like the best, like it's a good point to be where you can say no. And in your case, you're at a point where you can probably say, you know, that pitch was pretty cool, but this one is the one I'm really passionate about. And like being able to say that is like, I don't know, it's a good place to be.
It's a good place to be, and it was just an honest we were communicating really honestly with them. Like, the pitch that they wanted was, like, an original character, which would have been fun to create an original character for DC. I know that's some people's dream, but I was like, I just finished writing a bunch of original characters playing hockey. I wanna work on someone else's stuff, and I wanna work on Jack Kirby's stuff, so I was like, "I please," and they were like, "Okay, fine."
And now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. The sins of the past don't stay buried. They always find a way of rising from the grave. In November, Oni Press is proud to present Crownsville, a 5-part series from master storyteller Rodney Barnes and phenomenal artist Elia Bonetti. Founded at the turn of the 20th century, the Crownsville Hospital was a notoriously segregated all-black psychiatric institute. After decades of overcrowding and neglect, alongside darker, more persistent rumors of patient abuse and illegal medical experiments, it was finally closed. Today, it stands condemned. But when an unexplained death inside the abandoned hospital is ruled a suicide, Detective Mike Sims and journalist Paul Blair are compelled to dig deeper, only to discover the reality of the ghosts that still walk its halls. Enter a century-spanning tale of suspense and sorrow as true crime meets shocking terror in Crownsville #1, a double-sized 48-page debut coming in November from Oni Press. And now, back to the show. So Orion is the follow-up, and it comes on the heels of the Prince of New Genesis learning he's Darkseid's son, not the High Father's one. Or High Fathers. I always want to say the High Father. Anyways, what made that the right follow-up to Barda rather than, say, more Barda or like a Mr. Miracle Scot-Free story or whatever?
Oh, my God. So
Is it just because you love emo kings?
I love emo kings. Yeah, I said that very flippantly at I think it was ALA last year, American Library Association.
He is an emo
annual.
king.
Yeah, and I said that on a panel, and I think like there was a bunch of DC people there, and I was just being silly. I was like, okay, if they want to fire me, they can. And then someone reported on that, and I was very much like, no, it's I have to watch what I say. But he is an emo king. He's such an angst king. Like, eat your heart out, Edward Cullen. Orion. Okay, maybe this is the hot take. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, I don't know if people know how to write Orion. And
oh, sure.
I'm gonna say it on the record. Orion is so misunderstood, and I think the genesis of that misunderstanding comes from Grant Morrison's, I think, accurate interpretation of Orion, one aspect of Orion, and people have how did I say? I'm like,
they've taken that to like define the character instead of
precisely. Yeah. So he really is a character who is defined by his nobility and his like strident nobility. He's not mean. He is not cruel. Like to define Orion by cruelty is to misunderstand his character. And actually at last SPX I was talking to someone about this, about like Orion really being kind of like the righteous anger that you need to dismantle fascism. If you understand that, and that his violence is directed towards abuse and not a source of abuse, then you can write the character.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can go on so many rants.
Well, I mean, it is interesting because, like, I think one of the fundamental, most interesting parts of New Gods, and it's an obvious place to pick, is like the mirror images of Scot-Free and Orion, because you have these two characters that, I mean, they body swapped in a way. They just swapped from Apocalypse to New Genesis and had a wildly different life because of that. And I think the thing is like, it's interesting how Mr. Miracle has been given the complexity that Orion has never been afforded.
Hey, man, you said it, not me. No, Scot-Free is so complex in a way that might see. I think, but even then, I feel like Scott is made out to be either completely tragic or completely like, what is it, henpecked? Like some interpretations of Scott are very much like Barda's in charge and Scott's just trying to keep his wife happy.
Yeah.
I like my take on Scott is that complexity, even though he is so complex and even though he's experienced a lot of trauma, he's essentially just a happy guy. Like, just a happy guy. And that's who he is. He's like the embodiment of hope and freedom. So
yeah, he's like the pop punk to the emo of Orion. He's just like, he's just happy to be there. He's gonna pogo, he's gonna have a good time, and Orion's just gonna be like, I'm gonna go on tour with MCR and I'm gonna be mad about it. But there's more to it, just like there is to My Chemical Romance.
Yes, I've listened to a lot of My Chemical Romance while drawing Orion, so
I was very big in the emo scene back when I was in college. I had some crazy hair. There was a lot going on. It was a phase where there's not a lot of photographs of me for probably good reason. But I went to a lot of shows, and I would have been right there with Orion. I was sometimes I have to say, just a quick emo aside, sometimes I listen to some of the bands I listened to back then, and I'm like, man, I was so emotional. My God.
I'm still emotional. I
still am too. Yeah. I mean, I still am very emotional, but there's some where I'm like, I just, it's like too far. It's just too far. I can't get that emotional anymore. But anyways, I did, so last question related to your larger books. So Check Please, Bunt, Flip, Barda, and Orion. are all positioned for the same general age group. It's the young adult audience. Part of that you talked about already because you had the 3-book deal with First Second and they publish YA books and that's what they do. But I did want to ask about your work fitting within certain age bands. Like I had Nicole Gu and Mariko Tamaki on the podcast recently. We kind of talked about this too. But is that deliberate? Is that just about where the opportunities are, or is it something else?
That's an excellent question. It's kind of where I've just landed because when I was making Check Please, I was a young adult and I was just writing within my age range. And now I'm a little bit older and I still find that young adult is such a fun place to inhabit because it is that brink of, you know, we are still learning, we are still discovering who we are, and those internal investigations are really fascinating to me. I could picture myself writing adult graphic novels that are dealing with like maybe bigger problems or even going to middle grade or early reader. To be honest with you, I would go to early reader before middle grade because middle grade seems extremely complex to write and draw. Like I think a lot of folks will, if they want to get into the comics industry, they're like, oh well, middle grade's selling really well, and Dogman and Raina Telgemeier. And I'm like, okay, I'll just make a middle grade book. It's like a difficult science to make a
Mm-hmm.
book that really appeals to that age group. So young adult for now, maybe adult, and then I would just try to go to like some early reader book. I could do like a Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I could see myself doing stuff like that.
I have a hot take about the age bands.
Let's go.
I've always thought that like the real miss in the comics market is like there needs to be a more defined kind of like adult like post YA, post manga solution for people. However, I also understand the appeal of working in those spaces because a lot of times if you're adult, there has to be like this seriousness to it.
Yeah.
It has to be adult. And the thing is like I like kind of like with Mr. Miracle, young adult is afforded a complexity of emotions and allowance of humor, an allowance of like joy that I think that a lot of other age bands are like it's a richer vein of emotions that you're allowed to tap into there than you are with adult. And like and I'm not saying that their adult books are bad or that there's not funny ones, but it's often like great, hilarious books that are often about the misery of life, if that will.
Exactly. Yeah, no, you put it well. I think people think that in order to be an adult graphic novel, it has to be more serious or it has to be more sad. I'll take it. I'm a company girl. I'll take the time to hype up one of Macmillan's new imprints, which is 22nd Street,
23rd.
20th Street. Woof. It's First, Second, and then 23rd Street. And I think their line is kind of finally approaching adult comics with a little bit more levity. I've gotten to read a few of the books that they're releasing, and that should be a good answer to hopefully a good answer to the adult graphic novel problem.
I have to ask, did you read Lucas Wars? This is a complete
I
aside.
did. Okay, I didn't get to read the whole thing because literally I was sitting with Mark Siegel, who is the head of
Yeah.
23rd Street. We were all at ALA, and he brought out all the 23rd Street books, so I got to flip through Lucas Wars. Amazing cartooning and
Oh my
storytelling I
God.
didn't know about George Lucas's life.
The cartoonist in that, Renaud Roche. I'm butchered that name, so I apologize to you, sir. But just like he's like somehow a like even toothier version of Chris Samney.
Yeah, like I don't know how he did that. It's like pure unadulterated.
It's
Yeah,
so
totally.
good. Like the cartooning in it is just wonderful. But anyways, that's enough about a completely different cartoonist.
Oh yeah.
So you've been working in comics for a while now. You've done your own thing. You've worked closely with publishers. You've tried on other flavor of comics, like with your New Yorker cartoons. Do you feel like you know who you are as a cartoonist and what kind of comics you want to make at this point, or is that idea still evolving?
No, I kind of do.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean that in a lofty way. It's just at this point, I'm very interested in telling like funny, heartfelt stories, um, with like maybe some degree of a romance. And I'm very interested in stories that feel like I'm writing fan fiction for myself, and for my own ideas. I know who I am as a cartoonist and how I would like to get better and how I would like to improve. As a storyteller, that's yet to come. That's more of an identity that I want to get deeper into investigating, just because there's just so much to learn. There's a never-ending amount to learn about storytelling.
Well, and you're always going to be evolving too.
Yeah.
It's like we were talking about earlier with Flip, where it's like at a certain point you could see where you improved. And like you look at that versus Check Please, and you can probably look at that versus Orion when it comes out, and you're going to see improvements and changes and stuff. So it's like you're refining your voice within a place that you're very comfortable, it seems like. Do you know who John Allison is?
Yeah, webcomic artist. Oh my
Did
gosh.
Giant Days over at
Yes.
Boom and stuff. I I love
Webcomic
both of
writer.
your yeah. I love. Well, he also draws. He does a lot of his
Oh.
own stuff. He does Bad Machinery, which I think you would love.
Oh.
It's about a mystery kids in Britain, six mystery kids solving mysteries together, and I think it's funny that I really love both of your work, and like you two very specifically amongst comic creators. This is a funny thing to like know you for, but I feel like you're the two biggest fans of sitcoms that I know. And like, I don't know, there's something about that. Like maybe that ties in well with the YA of it all, because like sitcoms, they have that comedic element and they're not afraid to wear it, but they can also have complexity to them too.
Exactly. Sitcom writing, I don't know. I just love a good joke. I love a well-structured joke, and I love a good like formulaic story, like solving that math problem of a comedic storyline. Immensely satisfying.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right, to close, we did say that maybe we would talk about the WNBA. You are about to go on a festival tour right as the WNBA playoffs start. So,
Oh yeah.
with that in mind, though, with the playoffs starting, I have to ask: do you have a take as to who you think will be in the WNBA finals and who you
No.
think will win the title? You don't?
Maybe the Lynx. Who's in charge? Who's on top
The
right
Lynx
now?
are in first. The
Okay.
Aces have won like 13 games in a row. The Liberty are always sticking around. I don't know who's your team. Who do you like?
So I should say Dallas, since I am Texan. We have Paige Beckers, who has been
Amazing.
trying her best with this Dallas team.
I do.
And I
Can I make a quick Paige
please.
Becker's comment? It is funny how everything that you see about the Dallas season is like Paige Beckers set the record for most points scored in a game by a rookie, and they lost by 15.
No, it's like Paige Beckers just scored 100 points and Dallas lost by, and Dallas only scored 80. It's like, how is she scoring more points than no, it's crazy. I would say maybe it'll be the Lynx, and I don't know. If I don't say the Liberty, my friend will get mad at me. I got to go to the Liberty championship parade last year.
Ooh.
Oh, it was so funny. Eric Adams got up on stage to start talking,
Oh
and for
God.
every single person, they didn't play music. But when he got on stage, they had to play music to drown out the booze.
Oh my
It was
God.
so funny. Um, I'm gonna say the Liberty, or no, they're not gonna go back to back. It's gonna be the Aces. Dang it! It's gonna be maybe
I,
the
I
Aces.
I really like, so I would say probably my two favorite players, even though because I'm a Pacers fan and they also own the Indiana Fever, I should say that Indiana Fever are my
It's
favorite
not
team.
gonna be
But
the favorite. Yeah,
I really love Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson. I mean,
yeah,
those are obvious picks, but at the same time, like Brianna Stewart's game is like, I don't know, she's just got this like multifaceted, like jack of all trades type skill set that I absolutely love. But like Asia Wilson is so unstoppable,
yeah.
and so I don't know. I was thinking it was going to be the Lynx and the Aces in the finals, and I have no idea who's going to win. It's probably going to be the Aces just because they're so unstoppable. But I don't know. There's a lot of really fun players now, which I really love.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, who's the coach for the Aces who used to also
Becky
coach the
Hammond.
Spurs? Yes, okay, Becky Hammond. I don't know. I think the Aces might pull it off just because they're used to like just being in the playoffs and that level of intensity. And Asia Wilson is so dominant and wants
Yeah.
it. But I could see the Liberty somehow figuring it out to do a back to back. And the Lynx could totally upset us all because they have McPhee, right? Did I make
Yeah.
that up?
Nafisa Collier. Yeah. Fee.
Oh, why did I? Yeah, Fee. They call her Fee. I don't know why I
Yeah.
called her that. See, I don't know anything about the WNBA. But yeah, I do check. That's like one of 3 subreddits that I check: the WNBA, the NBA, and then like some other random places.
I often will get during WNBA season questions about the WNBA, and I think people kind of expect me to be like a single-threaded basketball fan, but I'm like into it enough where I'm like halfway ready to start watching like Eurobasket or something
Oh
like that.
boy.
But I have to get like another streaming service to watch it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I love watching Nikola Jokic, but I don't want to actually pay for another streaming service for that. But I don't know. I mean, that's the interesting thing about, I don't know, being alive in 2025. Like, it's very difficult to be into all things. Like, it goes back to
Yes.
the chi-chi of it all, and like that TikTok you did where it's like, you can't be a fan of everything. You
You
can't
can't.
be a baddie and a K-pop stan and this and that. You got to find
You
your
can. You can,
angle.
David. You'll be all of those things.
But Ngozi, that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about Flip and Orion and Emo Kings and everything else. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.